On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, the Raptors are back in action tonight after a 5-day layoff. And no big deal. It just kicks off maybe the most important stretch of basketball they've played in half a decade.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the number one sports podcast network in the land. It is Monday, December the 15th, and I am your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 12 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. You can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. 100% free to join. You can also sign up for the Locked On Raptors Everydayer Club. $5 a month, $50 for the year. You get ad-free episodes of the show each and every day. Link also in the description of the podcast to go and check out. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, in the middle of the season, it's a great time to hop on in for NFL live bets all season long at FanDuel.com. And we're off and running here on a Monday edition of the podcast, taking a look at the Raptors playing the Heat tonight. We'll get to the nuts and bolts of that matchup a little bit later on. We'll get into some comments from Brandon Ingram last week about the Raptors' margin for error being low. Why is that? How can they work to rectify that? And we'll, of course, get into a pretty important stretch of ball off the top here as the Raptors return to action tonight in Miami against the Heat. And it is Big V, Vivek Jacob here to talk about it all with us. Big V, feeling refreshed? Did you get some naps in the last 5 days? Are you ready for hoop?
Yeah, I did get some rest. Went to practice the last couple of days over the weekend. And, some promising signs, hopefully, for this team. We saw Jamison Battle get loose, and looks like he should be available for the game against the Miami Heat. We've got a bit of an RJ Barrett update.
Breaking news, starting the podcast. This is
exactly
what you come to podcast for, is breaking real-time news.
So it looks like RJ Barrett will be resuming some return to play activities. Nice. We don't know specifically what that entails, but that is obviously a step in the right direction to get him back on the court for this Raptors team that sorely misses him. And yeah, I think overall, as you mentioned, a big stretch coming up where, we've seen these 7 games in 11 days, and we've kind of accepted that that's had some part to play in the losing that's happened. And now you've had this chance to refresh. And so you do definitely want to see the team that was closer to doing all the winning it was doing prior to that.
No doubt about it. And Big V, I was thinking about this over the course of last night, thinking about today's show, and just thinking about the upcoming schedule, the teams they play, and just the context in which they're going to be played for a Raptors team that started off poorly at 1-4, and then was brilliant for a while at 13-1 in the next 14, and then has been pretty rough the last 7 games. It's been this, sort of series of extremes they've gone through to land at this 15-11 record. And now we sit here kind of turning the page onto a new section of the season, the second third of it, more or less, between now and the trade deadline. And it does feel to me, Big V, like this is the single biggest stretch of games they've had in terms of just like consequence in a very long time. Even going back to like Scotty Barnes' rookie year where they were a playoff team, there was never a time during that season where I felt like, damn, like this next stretch is going to tell us a lot. It's going to have a lot to do with the next set of decisions that are made. That team was fun, and it was kind of like just gravy all the way through, and they finished the season extremely strong. Never did it feel like there were huge stakes. You could maybe argue the post-Jakob Poeltl trade section of the season was important, although it didn't end up leading to much because they lost in the play-in and then lost Fred VanVleet, and then we know what happened after that. This feels to me just like a really consequential stretch where it's going to tell us a lot. There are going to be certain guys where I think there's a lot at stake as far as their long-term standing with the team, both high earners and less so down the roster. And with the opponents they have, where it's a mix of like teams that are very much their contemporaries, like the Miami Heat. They've got the Bucks coming up, another one with the Celtics. They've also got games against teams they should beat in the Wizards and Nets on the horizon. You'd like to not lose those games. It does feel like between now and the trade deadline just is an incredibly pivotal stretch for whatever comes next in this Raptors team build with the deadline looming. Do you agree with this, Big V?
Yeah, 100%. Looking at the schedule, looking at where this team is right now, you think about when they won 13 out of 14, and we're all clipping all the comments by Bill Simmons and Rob Mahoney and whoever, and being like, hey, you guys were wrong. And now, you lose 6 or 7. It's like, damn it. Were they right?
Let Bill win this one, damn it. Yeah.
So I think that's what this stretch could potentially define, where coming into this season, if you would have said the Raptors are a 45-win team and finish in the top 6, you would consider that a successful season. You would consider that meaningful progress from the previous season. And so you are kind of in that phase now, in a potentially defining phase of whether the Raptors can accomplish that. So if they continue this bad spell and they struggle and they even get to closer to the trade deadline and they're looking like a 500 team, a below 500 team, then that conversation does become like, hey, is this really what you're, up against the tax for? Is like just a 500-ish team, or do you have, a 45 plus win team that, you make a move here and there and maybe you're pushing even further? So I think this is potentially a defining stretch.
No doubt. I think on an individual basis, there are a few guys for which this next stretch of games is super interesting as well. I'm going to kind of just put you on the spot with a bit of an open-ended question. You can go any way you want with this. It's not that open-ended. There's only 15 guys that could pertain to. I guess 18 if you want to include two-way guys, but we probably are not going to do that. Sorry, Chucky Hepburn. But for you, which player on the roster do you think has the most at stake between now and the trade deadline? This can be in terms of just like their long-term earning potential. This can be in terms of whether they'll even be on the team after the trade deadline, just in terms of, their own sort of view within the eyes of the fan base and the franchise. Who are you looking at the most as just like, things got to go well for this dude over the next 6-7 weeks?
I'd say Jakob Poeltl.
Yeah.
I think that, with the way he struggled with his back, at practice, I asked him if this was something he just expected to deal with for the remainder of the season. And he just said, I don't know. He's like, there's days where everything feels right. And I try to kind of ride that as long as I can and think it's maybe done with. And then it comes back and he's got to deal with it. So I think for the Raptors, having given him that extension for, what he brings to this team, how indispensable he seems to be in terms of when, he's playing well and the impact he has on the team. Like, it's kind of weird if you look at the on-offs. Like, if someone were to just go on the on-offs and hasn't really watched the team, and someone who's covering the Raptors were to tell them Yak's really important, they wouldn't believe that, because you look at the numbers right now, the on-offs don't, really tell you anything about that. But it's because he's been on the court with his back so bad that it's turned out to be a negative. But when you look at him when he's right, it's a seriously positive impact. And I think that in general tells you that, hey, if the Raptors have a legitimate center next to these guys, good things are possible. And to sort of validate this team, I don't know that they can go the whole season with this version of Yak.
Yeah.
And so whether when I say, who's got the most at stake, is it bringing in someone who is a capable backup big who also is maybe pushing Yak for that starting spot? Is it moving on from Yak altogether? I think all of that is at play with Yak.
Yeah, the moving on thing is hard because I can't imagine other teams are like lining up out the door to go and pick up that contract. But hey, Raptors have all their picks. They have some stuff they could sweeten an offer with, and maybe they feel like they have to go and get ahead of this thing because they see where it's going over the next 4 or 5 years and say, okay, like, we're going to pay the piper to just get off of this deal now to try to bring in an upgrade And, that could very much be a decision they come to in the next 6 weeks if it's the similar Jakob Poeltl we've seen these last 6-7 games in particular, and the first 5 games of the season as well. I guess he didn't play in all of them, but that stands up as well as a thing he's got to do here is just play the games. Another guy I'll throw in, I think Pirtle's a great answer. I'll also say Grady Dick. Just like it's been a rough season for Grady Dick so far, and I think the franchise, obviously you pick a guy in the lottery, you have some belief in him, but you don't really have the luxury anymore of just kind of giving guys all the time in the world to figure things out. You can't be like, okay, we're going to give you the Terrence Ross second contract and hope that you kind of live up to it because we project you forward. Like, you can't be doing that for guys who haven't at least given you some proof of concept on a winning team anymore, just because the resources teams are operating with are limited with the second aprons and all the punitive measures that come with it. And so I think Grady Dick over these next 6-7 weeks, I mean, we've talked a lot about, well, Ochai Agbaji is just going to be the guy they trade to duck the tax. I don't think it's out of the question that if Grady Dick continues to look as poor as he has to start this year over the next 6-7 weeks, that he becomes a guy that maybe you look at maybe you just trade him and try to get out of the tax by getting off of his, $7 million salary. I don't think it's something they want to do. I think they'd love to give him as much run as possible here, but if he doesn't make threes or doesn't avoid kicking the ball away, if he doesn't figure out the hands and just holding onto the ball a little better, it's something I think they're going to have to reckon with here maybe pretty soon, and sooner than I think anybody thought they would have to with Grady Dick. But we'll leave it there. We'll come back on the other side here, Big V. We're going to talk about margin for error, which, as Brandon Ingram said last week after the Knicks game, Raptors don't have a lot of it. Why is that? Is there a way they can address that? Is it just a simple matter of get your guys back and that margin for error fills in? We'll do that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by Wayfair. And look, it's holiday season, and it's always a time where you might want to have some last-minute decor upgrades to your place. Maybe you're hosting family for the holidays. You want to see, want them to see a new place that they've not seen before. Maybe you're welcoming over to your first home for the holidays. Wayfair is the way you can deck out your new place with all kinds of, all everyday decor and holiday decoration that you want to put those final seasonal touches on the place you're using to host your holiday gatherings. Wayfair truly is your one-stop shop for everything home, with decor, furniture, kitchen essentials, and gifts for every style and every budget, all delivered quickly and easily. Their selection is huge. They get bedding, decor, kitchen gear, kids' room updates. It's all there for you to find, and it's super easy to go and peruse their website. You can shop by style. It helps you pick pieces that actually fit your home instead of guessing as well. Get last-minute hosting essentials, gifts for all your loved ones, and decor to celebrate the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now and shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That is what makes live betting super fun on FanDuel. And right now, you're not just watching the game with FanDuel. You are reacting to it in real time as the NFL season draws to a close. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. And live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. You get live spreads and money lines. They adjust instantly as the game progresses and things change. Player props update as you go, and guys heat up as well. And you can bet the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility on your NFL Sundays. Maybe your team has been eliminated from the playoffs like the Kansas City Chiefs. You just need to go sit down and do some live betting to fill the void. You can go do that. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Back at it here with Big V, our special liaison at Toronto Raptors practice the last couple of days, among other things. It's been nice to have you doing some on-the-ground reporting for the podcast, frankly, because I'm bad at it and you're good at it. So thank you. Let's jump on in here to a topic that you wanted to bring to the show here today. The concept of margin for error or lack thereof in the case of the Toronto Raptors. Brandon Ingram had some comments after the Knicks game about this. I'm curious, Big V, why was this something you wanted to pinpoint and talk about here today as we kick off this very important stretch of Raptors hoop?
Yeah, I think it's because we've seen kind of that disparity between the Raptors being very good and then the Raptors having stretches where they're very bad. And so when you look at RJ Barrett as a player, obviously brings some really important skills to this team, and helps in a lot of ways. But big picture, you also ask, like, should RJ's absence hurt a team as much as it has, right? To the extent of, like, this slump and losing 6 of 7 and whatnot. And the answer to that is no. If you're a really good team, you probably find a way to at least, keep your head above water, kind of be a 500 team, but you haven't even managed to do that. So, when I look at this team, probably in terms of the why, the first thing I look at is the fact that, at the end of the day, this is a very young bench. And so there's a lot of inconsistency that comes with that. There's still a lot of learning happening. And so, there was some talk before the season about how this is going to be bench mob 2.0 and this and that. I never quite saw it that way. I will say that Jamal Shed has played beyond my expectations.
Mamu too, probably.
Yeah, Mamu, I think in terms of the driving stuff and all of that, like, I think as a theoretical piece, you saw the fit being there, but I think the way he's played has definitely exceeded. But beyond that, it's been pretty underwhelming, right? Like, especially in RJ's absence, to have all of these guys between, Jacoby and Grady and Ochai. Ochai has probably been the biggest disappointment this season coming off of last year. And to have, like, none of them,
especially for you, he's your special boy, of course.
100%. But no, I think this is something now where you look at all those guys, like, now Jamison Battle is healthy. Do you just commit to the guys that are getting it done and play him? AJ Lawson's not going to isn't with the team in Miami. So we'll have to wait and see when he gets another shot. But I think that part of it is just comes down to the inexperience. And so if you're looking at building towards a bench mob 2.0, I think this season is just a lot of growing pains for that bench unit. And then maybe next year they get there.
Yeah. Hey, maybe like by the end of the season, some of these guys have evened out too, right? Like, I know Katie Heindel has talked a lot on her appearances this season about sort of the idea of in-season plateaus and then eventually kind of getting back on the incline after plateauing. Like, that happens all the time to guys as well. And I think if you listen to Friday's episode with Joe Wolfon, I think there's probably some answers as far as the margin for error stuff in there as well, where he was talking a lot about just sort of the specialization of a lot of their guys, where all of their guys have something they're good at, but if one of them is out, no one on the team can really replicate what that thing is. And it's interesting because, RJ being out has obviously been very bad. I still think, though, and I made this argument when RJ got hurt, he's probably the starter they can most afford to lose because of the guys they, in theory, have to fill in those positions. Like, you lose quickly, you are totally out your three-point shooting and movement and ball handling, and you're in a lot of trouble. You lose Scotty Barnes, and your entire defense falls apart. You lose Brandon Ingram, and your best shot creator is gone. You lose Jakob Poeltl, as we've seen, and just those functional big man things that he does are just not there from anyone else on the team. And so, yeah, I think it's an argument between Poeltl and maybe Barrett as far as the two guys you could afford to lose most, because I do think they have more in the hopper as far as guys who can play small ball five than they have in the past, but it's still tough. That said, that specialization thing and not having those layers of same type guys to fill in, it's trouble. And look, Ochai Agbaji, I thought last year, they ran him through RJ Barrett-like stuff all the time, right? Kind of running off those pin downs, catching on the move, getting to the rim. He just hasn't had that same level of rim pressure this season, and that's been a disappointment. Grady Dick, obviously, we've talked about his struggles. It's all kind of bled into it. There's a couple other things too, Big V, I think that stand out to me as reasons why they don't have a whole lot of margin for error when things aren't going well, when guys are out of the lineup. And I mentioned this on Friday's show as well. One, I think that just like the lack of a true superstar to paper over things. Like, you saw it over the weekend, right? When you have Victor Wembanyama, someone like that, it really helps cover up for a lot of things maybe aren't going super hot, and he can just kind of carry you to a win. That is how basketball has always worked. The Raptors don't have one of those guys, which is fine. Like, it's hard to get one of those guys, but they're missing that. Those guys are the ultimate margin for error guys.
You look at what the Thunder have done without without Jalen Williams. Like,
exactly, Shea's incredible. Yeah,
Chet's been going crazy. Yeah.
Exactly. The other thing I would say as far as like play style for the Raptors is like they're just not doing well on the 3-point math of it all. And far be it from me to be someone who's like, you got to take lots of threes. Like, I think people overrate the sort of volume thing to a degree. I think we've seen plenty of teams be successful by being low 3-point volume teams, but highly accurate 3-point shooting teams that also spam rim attempts. The Raptors this year, I just think they're coming up on the wrong end of both their own 3-point shooting and opponent 3-point shooting in terms of attempts. The Raptors right now are 26th in the league in attempt rate on their own end. And that would be fine if they were limiting other teams from taking threes, but they are 6th worst, 25th in the league in the amount of threes they let their opponents take as well. And we talked about the regression that was probably going to come after starting the season, giving up just 32% from deep. It still hasn't even fully hit just yet, and it may not hit in full scale, but they are just not putting themselves in a position where they can kind of get by with 3-point variance basically ever, right? Like they're just giving up a lot of threes. They're not taking a lot themselves. And it doesn't mean it's going to determine whether they win or lose every single game, the number of threes they get up. But on nights where you don't have it, a lot of teams just get bailed out by banging lots of threes. The Boston Celtics, I think, are a really good example of this the last few years, where like they might not have their fastball, but their threes are going in, and so they're going to be close and be in games. And I don't think the Raptors are putting themselves in a position 3-point shooting wise to do that. And I thought coming into the year, Big V, one of my bold predictions was they were just going to take a normal amount of threes this year based on what we saw in the preseason, where they were getting up pretty liberally. Hasn't been the case in the regular season. What do you make of that? Do you think this is another reason why their margin for error is just kind of not really there?
Yeah, and I think maybe if I were to go a bit more big picture with it, I think this is probably an opportunity for growth for Darko, right? Like
Sure.
I think when we talk about, the slippage that we've seen, some of that Darko does have. I feel he has the tools to address it to a greater extent than he has. And I think that, when you look at the offense right now, especially, I was looking at some numbers of the Raptors offense when the shot clock goes under 15. Like their early clock offense is still pretty much the same in terms of the effectiveness. But it's really their, pretty much when the shot clock goes under 15 that they get a lot of problems. And one of the things I pinpointed was just looking at, let me pull up the numbers here. There we are. Okay. So with the shot clock between 15 and 7, with RJ, the effective field goal percentage was 58.5%. Without RJ, that number has dropped to 50%. Between 4 and 7 seconds on the shot clock, with RJ, it was at 53%. Without RJ, that number has dropped to 29.9%.
Oh my God. That's far more grim than I thought you'd be passing along. That's upsetting.
And then under 4, it's dropped from 44% to 32%. And, before anyone says, oh, maybe the Raptors were like shooting the lights out and now it's kind of coming back down to earth. Under 4, the average is around 42%. So with the Raptors, when they were at 43, 44, that was like, it wasn't too crazy above the norm. And so 32 is like way below. And then, between 4 and 7 seconds on the shot clock, like they were shooting 53 as an effective field goal percentage. The average was about 51. So for them to now be at 30%. So these are the things where I'm thinking about, we can picture those plays where, Brandon Ingram gets the double team and RJ cuts at just the right time and is finishing at the basket or whatever it is. And so now it's like, why is it getting so stagnant? Why is cutting and moving into open space so difficult for everyone else?
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that Darko, some of that, maybe he just hasn't had the time. Of course, you play 5 games in 7 nights. You don't have a practice to actually even try and implement something new. But I do feel that's an opportunity for growth where he has to look at that and say, hey, this is where I need to do better for this team.
Yeah, 100%. Like I'm not sure the margin for error thing is going to get solved this season necessarily. It might just be the roster constitution they have, but it is, I think, a real thing, and I think Ingram was pretty astute to point it out. And it's get healthy, RJ. Really wonderful news to start to hear that he's going to be starting to return to play stuff this week. I got to say, it's not something I thought I'd be sitting here thinking, like desperately clamoring for the return of RJ Barrett, but here we are. He's been awesome, and he's a really important part of this team. We're going to come back to this side here, Big V, talk about the Miami Heat, who I hate watching. We'll get into the matchup between them and the Raptors, a really interesting matchup, and one that I think will be a pretty good barometer of where the Raptors sit going into this stretch of games that they really have to start performing well, and we'll do that coming up in just 1 second here. Today's show is brought to you by Rougiette. Let's be real, making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. That's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rougiette makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor, 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit Rougiette.com/LockedInNBA to get 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com/LockedInNBA. And don't forget to use our code LockedInNBA so they know that we sent you. Rougiette, stop making excuses and start making moves. Today's show is also brought to you by Doer, and it's the holiday season. It's a lovely thing, and I have myself a wonderful pair of holiday jeans from Doer. They're not like dressed like holiday. They're not holiday designs, but I'm going to wear them at all my holiday events because they're fantastic. They're versatile. They look great. They're comfortable. And if I have to like stand in like a person's living room all afternoon, I want to be wearing comfortable jeans while I do that. And Doer simply makes the most wonderfully comfortable jeans you're ever going to wear. They're the original performance denim. They have classic jeanswear style and all of the comfort and fit and flexibility of the athletic wear that we all like to wear in this post-COVID world where we realized, sweats are pretty nice. You should try them. I love them very much. I think you'll love them too. And you can go to 44 Ossington Avenue in Toronto right here to go pick up a pair at their in-person store. You just use the code LOCKEDONTORONTO at checkout, and they'll give you 15% off your first order. You check them out online as well at DUER.ca/LockedOnToronto for 15% off. That's doer.ca/LockedOnToronto or the promo code LockedOnToronto in store. Go get yourself some pants. Back at it here, wrapping things up, talking Miami Heat versus your Toronto Raptors tonight in Miami at whatever their arena is called now. I don't think it's the crypto company anymore because they went under, so it's something else. Maybe some other horrible crypto company. Either way, Big V, we are getting into a very interesting matchup, which you asked Darko about yesterday at practice. For those who are not aware, I've been watching a lot of Miami Heat basketball. They're playing the Noah Laroche offense. Noah Laroche, an assistant coach with the Memphis Grizzlies last year, before they cleaned house and did their whole thing. And if you recall, this offense they're playing is basically the oops, no screens offense. That's just basically one-on-one, everybody cutting off of that, spacing around drives. It is pretty simplistic. And frankly, to me, as someone who likes the beauty of team basketball, where all the parts are working together in harmony to create a beautiful look, 5 playing for 1, I hate this nonsense. It sucks. It's boring. It's hooper-pilled garbage. But it's working pretty well. And the Miami Heat have the 12th best offense in the league and the 4th best defense. Your Raptors come into this game per clean the glass with the 10th best offense and the 7th best defense. Really interesting matchup. I think they're almost like negative space versions of each other on offense, where if you like lay their offenses over one another, you kind of like see a full picture of offensive play types, in that the Heat just like don't run any pick and rolls. It's a lot of isolation. Both are pretty heavy transition teams. In fact, they're the number 1 and 2 transition teams in the NBA by frequency. So a really just like a fun, weird, quirky matchup that both teams have had a whole lot of days to prepare for. Should be pretty fun. What are you looking for in this one tonight here, Big V? Raptors, Heat. And if you have some more thoughts on what Darko had to say about their offense, please go off now.
Yeah, I mean, Darko obviously considered it a super unique offense and like showed a lot of respect and love for Spo and, kind of having that commitment to do whatever it takes to find ways for his team to succeed. I think it's interesting to see the buy-in from the Heat players. I think more specifically a guy like Tyler Hero, who was very dependent on the pick and roll action last year, and even this year so far, he's scoring the ball well, but his assists are down from like 5.5 to 2, and that's just kind of the way they're running the offense. And so I think what's interesting is Darko mentioning that it's going to come down to their one-on-one defense, and so that's going to be the challenge for this team. It's like, hey, can you depend on those situations where they're still having a lot of situations where you're going to have to chase guys. You're still going to like Norman Powell, Tyler Hero, like that's what they're thriving off of. And so can you do that effectively? Are you not losing players in that situation? And then when you are having to get into those one-on-one matchups, to me, is it something that actually helps this team right now? Because we saw them get into a lot of trouble with switches against the Knicks and situations where, for example, Jakob Poeltl is stuck on an island against Jalen Brunson over and over again. And you had the guys who were defending Jalen Brunson kind of give up the switch pretty easily. And so I think that's something that maybe, without all of those screens, that you're getting situations now where you are just challenged to defend one-on-one. And yeah, we'll get a lot of looks at what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think the Heat, they are built, I think, for this style of offense in a way. A lot of their guys are just like quick first twitch, straight line driver guys, Norm Powell, Davion Mitchell, those guys. But I do think none of their guys are what I would say like incredible ISO players. And so it's kind of this weird balance of it's probably the best thing for us to do right now, but also our guys are not the best at this thing. It's interesting. They run the third most ISOs in the league behind the Rockets, who have Kevin Durant, makes sense, and the Clippers, who have James Harden, also makes sense. And they had the fourth best points per possession in the league on those ISOs, but ISOs, if you aren't aware, kind of an inherently inefficient play type. Even if you're good at it, you're probably not scraping out nearly a league average offense. They only have a 1.027 points per possession on isolation plays per synergy. And so it is this kind of weird thing. It's like we're building our offense around this thing that is kind of inefficient and just kind of trusting that our defense is good enough to uphold. We get enough low-hanging fruit in transition, which the Heat are very good at. And, they're a good cut team as well, right? Like that's a big part of what they do is just like off those drives, you're going to draw help and you're going to hopefully cut and find easy buckets out of that. It's going to be interesting, man. I think like they have certain guys who I think I feel totally comfortable in these one-on-one situations with. I think there are a few guys who this might be a real game for them. Colin Murray-Boyles, Jacoby Walter off the bench, I think in particular, probably their two of their best individual on-ball defenders. We'll see if it's a rough go for a guy like Grady Dick in this game. I don't know if he's going to get a ton of run based on his recent run of play. Maybe this is a game where they go small without Jakob Poeltl quite a bit, just because, yes, Khalil Ware is huge, but they're not also a massive team on the other side. Could be a fun mismatch type of game where they play around some different lineups. This will be their first game against of two in the next week or so against the Heat as well. So I always like those kind of quick turnarounds to see how they adjust. It's just, it's a really interesting one. I think if they are like having the same trouble they've had in point of attack defense in recent times, this could get ugly. But also I think a lot of their trouble at point of attack defense has been kind of two guys converging at the point of the screen and kind of getting their wires crossed. And so is it easier to just guard straight up if going in like, hey, I got to stay in front of my dude in this game? Is that just easier to wire yourself for? I think it's a really fascinating team to kind of go up against midseason. And I'm glad they've had the time to prepare for this one because it is a very different kind of team. And it's not just like your run-of-the-mill, okay, we're just going to go play our usual game. Like you have to kind of focus your attention in certain areas against this Heat team. Any other thoughts on this matchup? What do you make of it for the Raptors? Obviously, the defense for the Heat is very good. The Raptors' offense has been cheeks of late. Could be another rough one for them. Any other sort of pressure points in this game, either on either end of the floor that you're looking at?
Not so much in pressure points, but I do think this is an important game where just the vibe from practice was more like, hey, like we really needed this time off. And if you can come away with a win here, it kind of validates that thinking of like, you know
Totally.
what, we kind of just got messed up by the schedule and now we're back on track. The Heat, even though they've lost a few in a row here, like they are 10-3 at home. And I think, they're a tough team. They're a physical team. Scotty noted, when I asked him about the Knicks, what he kind of took away from that matchup, he was like, man, like they were really, really physical. And guess what? Miami is going to be exactly that, if not more. so, so I think that's the challenge that they have to meet. And now having been well rested, I think there's no reason for them not to be able to bring that to the table. So I think that is more what I'm looking for. To meet the physicality challenge, to meet the intensity challenge, and to kind of say like, hey, the bleeding stops here. We needed this break for our minds, for our bodies, and we are ready to go.
Yeah, it's I mean, both teams with 11 losses, tied in the loss column, both among the 4 teams that have 11 losses in the Eastern Conference. I think tiebreaker stuff is going to be incredibly important for Eastern Conference teams, considering how bunched up things are between 3 and 9 right now. They've already gotten the tiebreaker against the Hawks and the Cavs. That's great. Awesome start. But, or at least I don't know if they have 4 games against the Hawks this year. They're 2-0 either way. Getting any sort of edge you can get against these teams is going to be pretty important throughout the years. So yeah, it's like as middle of December basketball games go, it feels like it's got some pretty real heft to it. And I'm pretty excited to see how it all goes down tonight. We'll talk about it on tomorrow's podcast, of course. Big V, anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Usual stuff, Raptors at 7, sportscasting. I will give a quick shout out to a graphic artist I know, Mark Serrano, does the letter art that you see behind me. So
it looks sick. Yeah.
And so if you want, you can go check out his stuff, markserrano.com. And cool. Yeah, he's got some really cool Raptor stuff.
Do that. Support local artists, especially around the holidays. This is the time to go buy cool art for your family. I love it when I get cool art from my family. If you're listening to this family, which they don't, because they don't need more of that, get me some cool art. Anyway, thank you so much for rocking with the show. As always, follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, join the Discord, link in the description of the podcast. And again, the Everydayer Club, $5 a month, $50 for the year. You can sign it up and get ad-free episodes of Locked On Raptors every single day. Just uninterrupted me, plus whatever cool guest I have on the show that day. What a wonderful thing that is. And we will leave it there. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. Damn.